All right. Welcome back, y'all. It's the Raw Prospect Podcast, episode 15. We got Noah Dennis back on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, man.
First
Thank
time
you.
returning
Yes,
guest.
sir. Happy
Y'all
to
know
be here.
me. I'm Michael Wee.
Amy Nixon right here. We've got that's probably our best show yet. Preparing for today.
Yeah, we got a great podcast planned.
We got NFL divisional round predictions. That all starts tomorrow. A lot of things to get to as far as Antonio Brown goes. And then we'll talk some NBA MVP, some Anthony Davis trade rumors, and we'll talk some Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I can't wait.
And to top that all off, we got some Kawhi Leonard drama.
There we go.
Yeah. All right. Let's get right into it.
Yes, sir.
First matchup, divisional round. Colts at Chiefs. Tomorrow at 3.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They just beat my Texans last week. I'm still a little heartbroken, but I try my best to get all my information together. So put on the show today.
Quickly, I'm interested to know, what are your thoughts on Houston?
I still love Deshaun. I don't like the Deshaun slander going on because of this one playoff loss. He hasn't been there before. It's our protection was a joke. It really was a joke. Bill O'Brien didn't make that an emphasis all year, and it finally caught up to him. I think there's so much talent there, and if we just took an offseason, we focus on building up that offensive line.
Yes.
I'm not against the coaching change. I love Bill O'Brien. Y'all know I've been the biggest Bill O'Brien believer since day one. Since Hard Knocks, I'm like, that's our dude. But I feel like the play calling time and the game clock management was so poor, and just I don't know. It's just we played them twice this season. I don't know how we were so surprised. T.Y. Hilton just comes in and dominates every time. Go ahead.
I like what you said about the offensive line. You guys saw last year what the Colts have done with their offensive line, getting Quentin Nelson and that offensive line.
It changed the whole trajectory of the team.
Of the Indianapolis Colts. Quentin Nelson has become one of the best interior guards in the NFL already in his rookie season.
It's crazy.
And their offensive line has been good. Andrew Luck's getting the best protection of his career. He's only been sacked 18 times all season.
That's amazing.
Only 5 quarterbacks have been sacked fewer. So if they were able to, maybe, I don't know much about the draft yet. I haven't studied all the prospects as far as the offensive line goes in particular, but if they were able to get 1 or 2 guys, put them in there right away, start building it up, that would really help.
Yeah,
for sure.
He was sacked 62 times this
Yes.
year, Deshaun Watson.
It was hard watching. Like, I'm so glad the season's over so I can stop watching him get beat up every week.
Right.
It's terrifying to see because, I don't consider him fragile, but his body type and his ACL injury history, it worries me seeing him get beat up like this.
Yes,
Like,
for
it's
sure.
not sustainable. You can't just keep pounding our guy. One day he's just not going to get back up the right way. Like, it's just it's very scary. We finally have our ticket. We found a franchise quarterback. Think about when's the last time the Texans have had a legit franchise quarterback? We talking Matt Schaub? We talking shout out David Carr? There's the legend. That's happened. Even David Carr, when he was drafted, he showed potential. He got beat up too.
Yeah.
It's
exactly. That's back to what I was about to bring up. It's just you think of Derek Carr's career, he was beat up early and he wasn't able to develop the same way. And it's credit to Deshaun Watson. He's been able to develop even with being pressured in the pocket a lot.
For sure.
So that's definitely encouraging.
Yeah, for sure.
But with that, let's talk about the Colts and Chiefs.
I like how you brought up. I'm sorry. Can you go ahead?
Nah, you can go.
I had a point because you were talking about Quentin Nelson. That is the matchup of the game. Is Quentin Nelson versus Chris Jones from Kansas City. So that's, to me, that's going to be the biggest difference. And just that the Chris Jones is the center of that Chiefs defense. And I think if they're able to get pressured, they got a big chance to win that game. I also win that game, but Amy, I'm very interested to hear your take. So
okay. So the first thing, as we all know, the Colts run Tampa 2 defense, 2 deep safeties, 3 linebackers. And the way to beat that defense is you got to run the football, and then you got to do play action and pull the linebackers in. But to the Colts' credit, they've been very stingy on defense all year long. They've only allowed one 100-yard rusher all year, I think. Just one. Actually, I don't think they've allowed any. But anyway. So the key to beating the Tampa 2 when you can't run the football is you got to be able to make throws 15 to 20 yards down the field, in the little gaps between the linebackers and safeties. So because you're not going to be able to throw it over the top against that scheme of defense. And we saw Deshaun Watson. He wasn't able to make the 15 to 20-yard throws down the field last week. So the key is those throws, and I think Patrick Mahomes will be able to do it, which is why I'm going to pick the Chiefs, 38-35.
I agree with a lot of what you said. I like what Noah said about particularly Quentin Nelson, but overall, the key matchup in this to me is the Kansas City defensive front, particularly the front four, against that Colts offensive line. Now you look at it, what's the key to being Kansas City in the playoffs? You have to run the football, cold weather, and now, usually those will still keep their offense off the field, but now that's of utmost importance because they have who? Patrick Mahomes, not Alex Smith. Now let me get to my point. You look at Marlon Mack, what he's been able to do against some of the top.
It's been incredible.
Either elite or good run defenses this year. He had 126 rushing yards against the Bills. They're an above average defense. He had 139 versus the Cowboys. They're a top 5 run defense. And he had 148 yards last week versus Houston, who actually ranked first in run defense. He's been pretty good against some of the best run defenses in the league. You look at the Chiefs' run defense, they're a totally different story. They allow the second most rushing yards per attempt, 5 rushing yards per attempt, only ahead of the Rams, which we'll get to later. So they have to get Marlon Mack the ball, not only early, but they have to be able to do it through the game, into the third quarter, late in the fourth quarter, if they want to win. Because if you look at it, in 9 games this season, Kansas City has jumped out to double-digit leads within the first 20 minutes of the game. In those games, they're 8-1. In the 9 games, they jumped out to a double-digit lead within the first 20 minutes. They're 8-1. The only loss was to the Chargers when they lost on that Mike Williams 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
When they did not, in the 7 games, they did not jump out to a double-digit lead in the first 20 minutes. They were only 4-3. So you got to keep that offense off the field. You got to establish the run, take pressure off of Andrew Luck, because he's going to be able to make throws against the Chiefs. They're not a very good defense. And we talked about the offensive line, what they've been able to do. He's only been sacked 18 times, as I mentioned. But, people look at this Chiefs defense, they're bad. Got some dudes up front. Chris Jones, as you mentioned, 15.5 sacks, 29 quarterback hits, 71 pressures. D Ford's a stud, 13 sacks, 77 pressures. And Justin Houston, who's aging, but he still had 9 sacks, 12 QB hits, and 48 pressures this year. The key is going to be establishing the run and then making those throws, protecting Andrew Luck. But I think the Chiefs eventually make plays late. I think the Colts will keep it close. I wouldn't be surprised if they even took a lead at some point in the first half. But I think the Chiefs are going to win 35-24.
I think one last point I want to make before you go on the next game is the weather. It's going to be snowing. It's going to be interesting, but it's fascinating because I don't think either team has advantage in the snow because if we look at it, Indianapolis is a dome team. They play in a dome. A lot of their players don't have experience out in the snow, but then you flip it. You go to the Chiefs, and it's like, okay, the air raid offense. You look at Patrick Mahomes. He went to college at Texas Tech. There's not a lot of snow in Lubbock. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to go down to the front sevens. We're going to go to the offensive line, defensive line, and I just think the Colts' offensive line is superior to the Chiefs' defensive line. I got the Colts old school in the football game. It's going to be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a coin flip, honestly.
For sure.
If you think of just the quarterbacks, it's neck and neck, honestly.
Are they the 2 best young quarterbacks in the league right now? Andrew Luck and Mahomes?
Maybe so, but the thing is, Andrew Luck is like 27.
It's hard to think.
Yeah.
I don't know. We got to fact check that his age. I think it's interesting because he's missed the past year, and it feels like I still remember coming out of college is the best quarterback prospect we've seen since John Elway, right? That was like he still seems young to me, right? Yeah. But I just think both of them, whenever the Brady's and the Rodgers retire, they're gonna be the two guys that take over. My guy Deshaun's gonna be there soon. Y'all just wait on that. Yeah. But I think it's them and Russ Wilson from Seattle. I think those are gonna be like the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks in the future.
I agree. Yeah. If you look at it, this is a historic matchup. You have Patrick Mahomes 50 touchdowns, Andrew Luck 39 touchdowns. That's the most combined touchdowns to face off in an NFL playoff game. Beat out a couple years ago when Peyton Manning had that crazy.
Oh, the stats are inflated. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, he just went berserk.
But that's 89 combined touchdowns between the two. That's a new record for a playoff game. It's gonna be fun to watch.
Yeah. I hope it's as fun. I hope it's as high scoring as that Chiefs Rams game. That would be.
I don't know about that.
I don't think it will, but it would be
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's gonna be weird to see how the teams react in the cold, but we'll see. But I think it's time we can move on to Cowboys versus Rams. We got a Cowboys fan here in the house. I cannot wait to tell you how the Rams are gonna beat your Cowboys, but we'll see how it goes. Who wants to take point? Let's start us off.
I guess I'll start us off. So, look, I'll say this before I make my prediction, which you might not be happy with, but I'll say this. I think the Cowboys have the perfect formula to beat the Rams.
Okay.
What is that formula? Well, it's run the football. Well, where's the Rams' weakness? Against, run defense. They allowed the most rushing yards per attempt in the league.
Right there with the Chiefs. There you go.
Yeah, like 5.2, 5.3, which is horrendous. But the key here is going to be the Los Angeles Rams play action passing game against the Cowboys defense.
Yeah.
What are the Rams? Well, let's look at last week. Okay. The main area in which the Cowboys defense struggles is against play action. They have allowed a 112.6 pass rating to opposing QBs off play action this year. That ranks 26 in the league. Okay. What happened last week? On the last week versus Seattle, Russell Wilson completed 10 of 11 throws for 111 yards on play-action passing plays. What does Jared Goff like to do? What do the Rams like to do? They run more play-action plays than any other team in the league. It's not even close. For Pro Football Focus, 34%, almost 35% of Jared Goff's throws came off play-action this season. That's the highest in the NFL. He completed 120 out of 197 passes for 1,971 yards, 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and had a 112.3 passer rating off play action. If they're able to get Gurley going, establish the play action, and the Cowboys struggle, it's going to be tough. But I will say this. I'm looking at, now on the other side of the ball, right? I'm looking at the Cowboys offensive line and how they're going to be able to neutralize Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh. Because if they can do that, that's when they can establish their running game with Zeke. And if he has a field day, then they have a legitimate chance to win this game. But if you look at it, no player, no single defender in the NFL can wreck a game like Aaron Donald can as far as defense goes, in my opinion.
Sure.
He can beat blockers with speed, power, technique, whatever you want him to do. You saw it, 59 tackles, 25 tackles for loss, most in the league. 51 run stuffs at or behind the line of scrimmage, most in the NFL. 20.5 sacks, most in the NFL. 106 pressures, most in the NFL. This dude, he can do it all. So the key for the Cowboys, if they want to win, is get Zeke going, neutralize those guys inside, and figure out a way to slow down the play action pass. I think they'll keep it close, but I think the Rams will make one or two more plays than the Cowboys, and I have the Rams winning 27-23.
Interesting. I'd like to take a moment real quick before I tell you that the Rams are going to beat your team. I want to talk about the one thing I think the Dallas Cowboys did right, and that was the Amari Cooper trade. I was a big hater of the trade. I think we all were. That was appalling. Giving up a first-round pick for Amari Cooper, who is I wouldn't call him a bust, but he regressed every year he was in Oakland. And I was like, man, John Gruden finally did something with that could eventually turn out to be a success. He's done an awful job in Oakland or Vegas, wherever, or London. Where are they going to play next year? Did you see that they might play their season in London?
No way.
The Raiders are one of the worst run franchises in sports. Like, it is pathetic. You're going to give John Gruden from his Monday Night Football job, you're going to give him 10 years, $100 million?
That's just right now. Yeah,
That's ridiculous. You're going to go ahead and trade Khalil Mack, who turned the Bears into a Super Bowl contender. You're going to trade him away because you want to pay him. That's ridiculous. And then you're going to go in and you're like, okay, we're just going to rebuild and get a bunch of draft picks. Sweet, that makes sense. But then you go and you trade Amari Cooper, and he has revolutionized Cowboys offense. So I'm going to give you a few stats here real quick. So before they had Amari Cooper, they were one of the worst passing attacks in the NFL. So we're going to look at basically the average target separation when they throw the ball, how much space the receiver has. Before Cooper, they only had 2.9 yards. When Cooper got there, he's spacing the field. Receivers have an average of 3.6 yards of separation.
Wow.
He's spacing the field. And then we're going to look at the tight window throw percentage for Dak Prescott. Okay, so before Amari Cooper got there and spaced out the field, 23.3% of Dak Prescott's throws were in tight windows. Since Amari Cooper has got there, it's down to 14.2%. It's just crazy. All these facts from NFL.com. I always got to give credit to where the information is. I didn't make this up. This is legit. And then, yeah, I got you. It's either NFL.com or Pro Football Focus, both great outlets. Then I think the biggest difference, we got the touchdown to interception ratio. Before Amari Cooper, it was 8-4. 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. After Amari Cooper, it is 15-5. Amari Cooper, inserted in the Cowboys offense, has made them awesome. They made them fun to watch. So now I can sit down and watch a Cowboys game without throwing up.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to give you one reason why the Cowboys will lose this game. It is Mr. Jason Garrett, the clapper. This is his game plan right here. I'm showing you his game plan right now on this podcast. You can see it at home watching it. He's the clapper. He's just going to stand here and clap until the game is over. They can be up 40, down 40. They could be – it's awful. Jason Garrett is the worst football coach I've ever seen. They need to get my Pop Warner, Coach Pruka, my Pop Warner coach needs to be up there. Like, it's ridiculous. It makes no sense. That's my favorite part. So whenever the Cowboys – aren't showing Jerry Jones in the owner's box, or they're showing Jason Garrett and he's just clapping. I guarantee you. There needs to be like an over-under in Vegas for how many times this show Jason Garrett's clapping. It's got to be like 38.5, and I'm pick over. Like, it's ridiculous. You got Sean McVay on the other side. There's no way I can. The amount of pressure this Rams team is under, because Sean McVay, he needs to prove something. They're the team with most pressure on them in this playoffs, the whole playoff picture. Because think about it, like, he's revolutionized offensive football in the regular season, but what has he done in the playoffs? This is his chance. He's got the most talent of any team, I think, in the league. And this is his chance to prove it. And I guarantee you the clapper is not going to get in his way. So, how are you feeling? You okay?
Okay.
You all right?
Okay. Let me make my argument.
Okay, go for it.
First of all, you stole all of my stats I was about to say. I literally had the exact same stats. Like,
it's great minds think alike.
The play action, pass, stat, all of that. I was about to say the exact same thing. But y'all are forgetting two things. Number one, it's basically a neutral site game. The Cowboys have their preseason camp there every year.
That's true.
They have
a
lot of fans up there.
I forgot about that.
LA doesn't have a great fan base in the first place anyway.
Right.
That's the worst part of LA having a team. Nobody cares in LA. It's sad.
Right.
But go ahead. Sorry.
And then number two, Dak is clutch. All right. It's like he's not like that great of a thrower, but he's a winner, man.
I agree.
He's a winner. Like, it's just,
what does he win in Dallas? Why do you call him this winner? Like, I mean, we've all watched Dak since his Mississippi State days, and people love him. Like, he's got a great story. His teammates love him, but I don't. He has no playoff experience. Like, that's like, I mean, he can win regular season games. I just don't see him putting it all together versus the Rams, which is really they're not statistically the best defense, but if you look down at the pieces they have with Aaron Donald, Ndamukong Suh, Marcus Peters, they got a bunch of bad dudes.
Well, that second one kind of came from a bias place. Let me give you the
I gotta keep you in check. I got
Let me give you the analysis.
Go for
Yeah.
it. Sorry, my bad. Keep going.
Obviously the stat about the Rams' run defense. That's the biggest thing. Zeke needs at least 30 touches if the Cowboys are going to have a chance.
He's got it
At
out.
least like 25 carries, 10 catches. Just feed them the ball.
Mhm.
And then second thing, the Cowboys need to stop the run. That like the play action, it won't work as well if you're stopping the run
That's true.
and neutralizing Todd Gurley. And we have the linebackers to do it. Jalen Smith, Vander Esch, and then we have, of course, Sean Lee on the bench right now. And then the thing I'm concerned about, like I know it, like everybody's been giving him credit the whole year, but I'm concerned about Byron Jones.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's the Rams' quick receivers against this long, lanky jumper that's played safety his whole career. Like he's had a great year, but it's not a good matchup.
No, not at all.
So our back end may struggle a little. So the pass rush is just gonna have to get there. And we saw it in the Bears game where you beat the Rams offensive line with speed.
Mm-hmm.
And Lawrence, Gregory, Malik Collins, and
Jalen Smith.
Antoine Woods, and Jalen Smith.
I love
Woods.
Jalen Smith. It's a great story.
Yeah. I just think if we hold them under 30 points, we win. And if we don't, we lose. Simple as that.
Fair point.
And just I'm so biased. Like
Yeah,
y'all
you
exposed
are.
me.
Yeah,
I'm so biased.
It's all love. It's
but,
all right.
but I gotta ride for my team, man.
Go for it.
I'm
It's gonna be a good game. I
loyal
think it's
to
gonna
a
be a close game.
fault. I'm picking the Cowboys 28-27.
All right. So I think we all predicted it's going to be a close game. Are we ready to move on to our third game
Yes.
Yeah.
of the weekend?
Ready.
So we got Chargers versus Patriots. Wayne, you want to start us off?
Sure. It's interesting. People are going to look at history. Phillip Rivers is 0-7 against Tom Brady and
He is. Never beaten Tom Brady.
1-8 overall against New England in his career. The only win came against Matt Castle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to tell you can throw all that history out the window. It does not matter in this game because I'm picking the Chargers to win. Let me tell you why. I like the way the Chargers secondary matches up against the Patriots receivers and how I think if the Chargers win this game, first of all, you're going to look back and say, well, two players. It was Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to do to beat New England? Pressure Brady. What can they do? Pressure Brady. They don't have to blitz. They just bring that front four with Bosa and Ingram. And you saw Ingram last week. He was a one-man wrecking crew against Baltimore. He wrecked that game start to finish. He was in the backfield constantly, whether it was getting to Lamar Jackson and sacking him, forcing fumbles, or just stuffing the run. And then Bosa, obviously, he's been in and out the whole season with injuries, but he can do the same thing. Now this Chargers defense is healthy, and they're going to be able to rush the passer. That's the first problem for the Patriots. Second problem is how the Chargers secondary matches up with Patriots receivers. Now, they don't have Josh Gordon anymore. They could really use him.
That was a big loss for
against
New England. That was huge.
They could really use him now against this Chargers team. Let me tell you why. Okay. First of all, I mentioned the run game, so I don't need to say that. Tom Brady has not been elite this year. Usually he's elite. He's in the MVP conversation. He's not that this year. If you look at it from last year, his completion percentage, yards per attempt average, touchdown rate, interception rate, passer rating, and QBR have all dipped significantly this season. He's not the same. It's not to say he's been terrible or even average. He's been good. He's still been really good, but he's not the same. He's not the elite quarterback that he was last year or even the year before that. The Chargers' greatest strength matches up well with the Patriots' strength, right? What can they do? Well, last week against the Ravens, they ran. Let me find it. I have a lot of things here.
A lot of info.
Yeah, a lot of info. Sorry.
This dude is the stat king.
He's a statistician. He's a statistician of the podcast.
Well, let me just read, okay? The Chargers' greatest strength through the air were against tight ends. They ranked, in terms of defensive efficiency, they ranked first in terms of covering tight ends. And short passes, which this Patriots offense does a lot, you got Julian Edelman, all those dink and dunk passes to the running backs out of the backfield, they ranked third in terms of defensive efficiency. Now, where they were less strong was against number one receivers. They ranked 23rd against number one receivers. That's where the Patriots could use that deep threat in Josh Gordon.
Which they don't have.
They don't have that anymore. Okay? Now, I think, in my opinion, this Chargers team is the deepest team left in the playoffs in terms of depth at every single position. I think their group of corners and safeties is the deepest and most versatile in the entire NFL. You can argue it, but that's my opinion. The best thing about this Chargers secondary, guys like Casey Hayward, Michael Davis, the two outside guys, Desmond King, who they put in the slot and is also the punt returner, Adrian Phillips, Jaleel Adai, and rookie sensation, a guy I love, Derwin James.
He's one of the best safeties in football.
Game changer. There's a number, all those guys, there's a number of different ways. Defensive coordinator Gus Bradley, who's done a fantastic job, especially with all the injuries this defense has had the entire season, who's done a fantastic job deploying them all in different ways because they each possess a variety of skills that he can use in different ways. He can mix and match coverages in a way that I think is going to end up confusing Tom Brady, which doesn't happen a lot. But they have the talent and the depth in that secondary to hang with these Patriots receivers. Last thing I want to say, the Chargers, here's how I think it's going to play out. Now, I could be wrong, but I think the Chargers are going to use Hayward and Davis, their two outside corners, and they'll put King in the slot like they always do. But if you look at the matchups, Casey Hayward and Michael Davis will be matched up with guys like Chris Hogan, Philip Dorsett, and Cordell Patterson, guys the Pats like to put on the outside. And then you'll have guys like Derwin James and Desmond King against Julian Edelman in the slot. I really like those matchups. I think you can use some of those other safeties and the depth they get from either James or Dye to use as kind of those hybrid linebackers in those large secondary sets where they put 6 or 7 defensive backs on the field. They can use them to double team Gronk, match up well with Gronk, who hasn't been the same at all this year. And I think he
hasn't been consistent. I don't think he's mentally into, because remember when this offseason, the Patriots were on a verge of just complete rebuild mode. Because remember, they had an offer made to Detroit for Gronk, and it was about to be made until Gronk heard about it, threatened to retire.
Yeah.
The deal was off. Go ahead, my man.
So I think they'll put – I like the matchup with King against Edelman. I really like the matchup with Hayward against either Hogan or Patterson. And I like Davis, who's come on late in the season. No one really knows about him yet. But I think after this game, you can look back and say, I know the name Michael Davis now. I think they'll get maybe 1, even 2 interceptions. That'll make the difference in the game. They'll be able to stop the run, pressure Brady in the end. Chargers make a play or 2 more. Low-scoring affair, 23-17.
Interesting. I think I agree with your argument about how the Chargers defense is elite. I don't think there's any question that I think the Rams are the most talented defensive team, but they definitely have the most young talent.
Yeah.
You got Melvin Ingram, Joey Bosa, Derwin James. That's a core you can build around. But I don't think you can just discount history. That this is the New England Foxborough football. This is exactly what this team is built for. This is exactly what Bill Belichick has continually done whenever he is doubted. We can look back. We were talking about 0-7 versus Brady. We'll bring out the individual record. It doesn't matter about regular season. They played a really close game. It's the beginning of this year. and there was a 21-13. Like they've had close games before,
Yeah.
but we go back to the playoff games in 2006 and 2007. They played back-to-back years. 2007 in the AFC Championship game, and Philip Rivers did not have a good game in either. Like that's versus Tom Brady. Football is so different than any sport because teams still have the longevity. There's no other sport where there's just a psychological advantage that Tom Brady has, where it's anytime he's in the playoffs and he's at home, this dude's going to find a way to win games. And then we talked about Joey Bosa. I completely agree with you. Since week 12, he's according to NFL.com, he's had 6.5 sacks since he returned from injury. That is tied for most in the league. He has been dominant. But the New England Patriots, let me finish real quick. The New England Patriots have the best offensive line in football at protecting the edge. I mean, they have a 9.6% pressure rate off the edge. That's the best in football. This is what they do. They are built for blocking the edge. The guys, Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa are so in good place. But here's what happens. Whenever this happened with the Texans, whenever they came to Foxborough, and that was I thought the best team I've ever seen in my own eyes. And that goes J.J. Watt. That was the year he went Defensive Player of the Year. He was insane. We had Whitney Merciless, we had these players on the outside, and Tom Brady dumped the ball so quickly. There was no chance of getting to him. That's their whole offense. So it's like I love Josh Gordon. Like I mean it's a truly sad situation for Josh Gordon because of his addiction. Because that is not a football thing. That's just a human being thing. Right. He's in a perfect situation with Tom Brady, and you can't get off his addiction to be able to play for his teammates. Like that's a whole other issue we could talk about later. But it's like their entire offense is with the quick passes and getting the backs involved. This is the worst supporting cast Tom Brady's ever had. So it's going to be interesting to see how the supporting cast shows up in the playoffs. But I just think that the Chargers' strengths are something that New England handles so well. They play teams in the playoffs with these same strengths. Go ahead.
Interestingly enough, I like how you brought up the psychological advantage point.
Yeah.
That played, I mean, I don't mean to sidetrack here, but if you look at Alabama, teams are beat before they even get on the field.
Yeah,
because they know Alabama's going to just pound them.
Right in the mouth.
Yeah.
But Clemson was different. They played this team a couple times, and they knew they could compete, and they didn't go in all like, what's the word? Intimidated.
Timid, yeah.
And that's why they won with a true freshman quarterback. Now, if you look at it, you want to talk stats? I got your stats.
All right, here we go. The statistician. There we go.
Philip Rivers' first 12 games this season.
Okay.
69, basically 70% completion percentage.
Mm-hmm.
9 yards per attempt, 28 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, 115.7 passer rating.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to your point, he hasn't been playing well the last 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
65% completion percentage, 1,050 yards, 4 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, only a 76.3 passer rating, which is mediocre.
That's mediocre.
Now, that's going to be the interesting part is he doesn't have a good history against this Brian Flores coordinated, who might actually maybe get a head coaching job.
I heard his name with Miami.
Yes.
I think he's from
yes. But and he could be hired,
as soon as he gets off the field.
Yeah. Yep. But with him not playing well the past 5 games, it doesn't work out very well for Rivers considering his history against this Brian Flores coordinated Patriots defense, who's actually playing really well the past 5 games since their bye week.
Mm-hmm.
They're only allowing like 12 points per game since their bye week. Now, they haven't played necessarily. To your point, they haven't played the most explosive teams in the league. But I mean, they did hold the Steelers on the road to 17. That's a good offense. I don't know who else they played, but they've been playing better.
Right.
And they're in a rhythm.
I
And if you look at, again, stats, Philip Rivers in the playoffs in the 2 games versus New England, 0-2 record, 47.8% completion percentage for 441 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a 50.5 passer rating. Overall, versus New England in his career, 1-7 record, 60% completion percentage, 2,041 yards, 10 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 80.4 passer rating. Mediocre, below average quarterback. That's where the psychological advantage can come in. But I think this year it's going to change. I think
That's fair.
I think they're going to make the plays necessary to win. And I think Anthony Lynn, where do the Patriots usually beat you? It's not usually with talent. It's with coaching and discipline. And
he's an inexperienced coach.
And Anthony Lynn's an inexperienced coach. And the only way I could see the Chargers possibly losing the game is if they make mistakes in terms of like game management or they do something stupid. Yeah.
Clock management is support. It's funny that the biggest coaches, often the biggest stages, they just forget the most basic.
But I think Anthony Lynn is a really, really good coach. I think he should be. I think he'll come second in terms of coach of the year. I think it should be Matt Nagy, even though they lost to Philly. I think he's going to be second in the coach of the year race. That's the only way I see him losing this game. I'll stop talking.
Take it away, Amy.
For me, if I'm a Chargers fan, 2 words.
So there's not much of those, but in this hypothetical situation,
Sean Kunkel.
Yeah, there you go. Shout out, Sean.
Yeah. 2 words. Don't choke. All right. It's like that's it. They have the better team overall, and that's the bottom line. It's just the fact that Philip Rivers in his career is 0-7 against Tom Brady, and as you alluded to, and it's just there's like this team is built to beat the Patriots, but the Patriots don't beat themselves. You know that you got to go get the job done. Like I know everybody has already said that Philip Rivers is Hall of Fame, yada yada yada. I don't know. Like, what has he done in the playoffs? He never won anything when he had LT with at running back.
Those are really talented teams that didn't get anything done.
They didn't get anything done. And just another thing to think about, the teams that the one team that I can think of in the past few years that has beat the Patriots in the divisional round is the Ravens. And I feel like this team and that team are so similar because they're both just coming in on the road with nothing to lose, with a great defense, a solid quarterback. Joe Flacco's but he played great in those playoffs. So if Philip Rivers can just not make mistakes, be accurate, just do what he's been doing all year, they win this game. No bad mistakes, penalties, that'll kill them if they let it happen. So I'm gonna pick the Chargers, just believing that hopefully they don't choke. Like
they're the more talented team.
Just clearly, just in every every sense of the word. But it's just the Patriots are the Patriots.
Yeah, the last 10 minutes, or the last whatever it was, minutes of that Baltimore game last week worried me.
Yeah, Baltimore almost came back and won that football game.
In terms of this game, you do that against Brady in Gillette,
it's over. Yeah. And honestly, if the Ravens put Joe Flacco in that game, they win.
No way.
Think about it.
That is
they
absurd.
had the ball one score.
My notes down. That's a disgrace.
Last possession, and then Lamar Jackson fumbles it. I think just if you put Joe Flacco in there, it gives them I'm not saying they just put him in there just on the last drive. I'm just saying the entire second half. You
say you put Joe Flacco in the second half, even though Lamar Jackson brought them back in the first place. But they need to drive to when Lamar Jackson, the Ravens were the worst team in their division before Lamar Jackson took over. This kid came out and he was electric in college. His teammates love him. Like, that is their guy. Joe Flacco may be the better passer, theoretical passer, pocket passer. Right now, this whole offense when he was in there was just throw it up and hope he's get a PI. Like, there was no ball movement. Joe Flacco, he got his check from the Super Bowl. He's got his contract. My guy Joe is chilling. Like, he's fine. I just think that you gotta ride with your guys. Like football is such a different sport. It's hard for one person to take over. You know what I'm saying? There's very rarely we see instances of like, you know what I mean? It's not like Jimmy Butler's coming in and get all the third stringers and beating the Timberwolves in practice. Like, it doesn't happen in football. You need a team. And, like, Lamar Jackson's just such a better leader. That, like, if you're in a close game and you've made it so far with this guy and you've invested everything into Lamar Jackson, you don't mention the most important game of his career in the Ravens season. Basically, the most important Ravens game passed since the Ray Lewis days, right?
Past 5 years.
Yeah. I love Lamar Jackson as a prospect.
Right.
So I'm gonna pick up my.
I really struck a nerve there.
No, dude. I gotta defend my guy Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. I have nothing against Lamar Jackson. I just thought the flow of the game, it was going that way.
It's an interesting concept. It's interesting to see if Lamar had more pocket passer capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
He maybe could have won the game, but it's like I just think he's such a better. He gives the Ravens a better chance of winning.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my whole thing.
Yeah, it's just when you looked at the play calling, they were so limited. You know,
they were very conservative with their play calling. I wish they ran the same, because I think what you're referring to is you wish they threw the ball more around like Joe Flacco could. I think Lamar Jackson could do that if they just take the training wheels off. I think if like the season there's so little left. I just think you throw it all out there and you just let him go try to win the game. Because I think he doesn't have the footwork yet, Joe Flacco, but it's like I don't think he was given the chance to show off his arm talent. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, here's what I didn't like. I didn't like the Ravens fans booing Lamar Jackson.
Yeah,
that was uncalled for.
ridiculous.
You need to be more appreciative. You have this kid who has a future, and he's so young. Like, he just came in, and he is everything he learned in college is wrong, and he's completely turning it around. And he's been nothing but great with the fans. Like, he's just your prototypical. He's the stereotypical. Like, he does everything he needs to do to be a franchise quarterback on and off the field.
Right.
Booing Lamar Jackson is a crime.
Yeah.
So, all right, I think we're ready to move on to our last.
He changed the whole dynamic of the team when he was.
Oh, that's exactly what I said. It's but it's like you can't. There's no the stats don't show the story of Lamar.
Right.
Like, everyone buying into his message.
He got them there.
Yeah.
And even though the Steelers choked, he still got him in position to win the Steelers choke.
We're going to give you a chance to talk about AB a little bit. Yeah, I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah.
And then our last game, we got Eagles versus Saints.
Here, I'll start. Yeah, I'll start this one. This game, I think it's going to be closer than people think.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Nick Foles, you just have to give credit where it's due. Like, everybody has doubted him the last 2 years, and look what he's done. It's just unbelievable. There's no other way to explain it. So I think he will be able to move the ball and score points, but it's a tough uphill battle playing in the Superdome. In the Superdome, those fans are crazy. Like, they're crazier than Seattle fans in some ways.
Maybe not volume, but like
maybe not volume,
New Orleans.
But
they're
the way
crazy
they're dressed and like the face paint, they got like the Mardi Gras masks on.
They've been eating gumbo all day. Like, it's a later game. It's the last round game.
They are going to be riled up. But anyway, back to the point. I just don't think psychologically they can overcome the way they were just beat down by New Orleans last time.
That was week 11, right? That's a little over a month ago.
Right. It's crazy how the tables turn, but they were.
Have they turned that much? I'm gonna get to you. You finish. You finish.
They were beat 48-7 in that game. So I think the Saints will win 31-27.
Really? Another close game.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be exciting. I hope it's a close game. I personally think that the Saints are going to come in and they're just going. to destroy the Eagles. I mean, I think okay, and I'll tell you
like
one.
that.
I'll tell you one
Cowboys fan.
reason why.
Screw the Eagles.
This is okay. So I was originally, whenever I began prepping for this podcast, so excited to be back on. I think it's going well so far. We'll see how the viewers like it. But I saw this story on Twitter, and I just stopped, and I was like, he did not do that. This is Sean Payton. And this is his week of practice in New Orleans. They're getting ready for this game, and he goes into the locker room, and he brings in the Lombardi Trophy. Okay, the big old Lombardi they won in 2009, right? And he has it sitting on $200,000 cash. Okay, that's the player bonus you get if you win the Super Bowl. And on top of the little cash, he has a championship ring. And then he said, if you want all this, you need to win 3 effing games in front of the whole team. And I'm just saying, like, I'm not even on the Saints, but I'm fired up trying to win these games. Like, Sean Payton is such a great leader and motivator of his players. Like, I just knowing, like, he's going to has so much preparation. He's going to be so ready for this game. I really think the Eagles got lucky last week in Chicago. I mean, I feel awful for Cody Parkey. His kick was tipped, and people are just booing him out of the stadium. There were a lot of different things you can point to. Chicago. Remember the 2-point conversion and Khalil Mack running around as a tailback? Like that, I just think there was that was a perfect opportunity for the Chicago Bears to pull it out. They're inexperienced. I think the Eagles got lucky. I really think that the Saints are just going to come in, and I think it's going to be exactly like that Week 11 loss. I mean, that's just me. I just think that the Carson Wentz slander is so interesting because just 2 years ago, he was the MVP favorite. And then now, especially Eagles fans are saying that they should just stick with Nick Foles and trade Carson Wentz, which I just think is lunacy. I think it was because Nick Foles came in, he won the Super Bowl last year, which is awesome. It was a great run. All these players, they're motivated for the guy Nick Foles. It's interesting to see the dynamic between Carson Wentz and Nick Foles. I just think Carson Wentz has such a higher ceiling. And I really think Eagles fans are going to regret trading with Carson Wentz if that ends up happening this week. All right, go for it.
As far as that Nick Foles, Carson Wentz controversy goes, I don't believe it yet. I think we can have maybe a more legit conversation if they win this.
If they win this game, we got to talk.
If they win this game in New Orleans and if they get to the Super Bowl, that's when you really got to worry. But we're far away from that. Let me talk about my prediction. 2 things. Don't get overwhelmed by all the numbers I'm going to throw out. Just listen up. I'm looking at the Eagles defense versus 2 guys in particular they have to contain, and it's going to be tough. Kamara and Thomas. You guessed it. First of all, almost half, 49.7% of Drew Brees' pass attempts this season went to either Michael Thomas or Alvin Kamara, and he was remarkably efficient when targeting them. He did not connect as often with other receivers, but when he did target those other receivers, they were open and they were deeper down the field because Kamara and Thomas take more attention away from the defense. Now, if we're looking at the stats in particular to each guy, when Brees threw to Michael Thomas, now you might think Thomas had 125 receptions this season, but he only had 119 from Brees because Brees didn't play the last game against Carolina. That's where this comes in. 119 out of 139, 85.6 completion percentage when throwing to Michael Thomas for 1,332 yards, 11.2 yards per reception, 9 touchdowns, 1 pick, 72 first downs, and a 125.5 quarterback rating. When he threw to Alvin Kamara, not as much, but still a lot. 81 out of 104, 77.9% completion percentage, 709 yards, about 9 yards per reception, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, 32 first downs, 104 quarterback rating. When he threw to all the other guys, he still completed 66% of his passes, but that's a significant drop off from, 85%? 1,951 yards. Now, as I mentioned, more yards per reception, 19 touchdowns, more interceptions, 4 interceptions, 99 first downs, and a 111 quarterback rating. Now, the point is, I'm going to tell you why the Eagles lost that game so badly in whatever week it was, 48-7. the first time they visited New Orleans. They attacked the Saints defense the wrong way. If you look at it, Michael Thomas, most of the season, worked better as a short to intermediate target to help Drew Brees matriculate the ball down the field. Same with Kamara. But per Pro Football Focus, Michael Thomas, of the 147 targets he got this season, only 9 of those traveled 20 or more yards downfield. Thomas caught 7 and 9 of those balls for 246 yards and 2 touchdowns, making him a capable deep threat. He is a capable deep threat, even though we don't see it often. And the Saints' weakness is defending deep down the middle of the field. They're very good on those short passes coming up, making a tackle. They're a good tackling defense. But you got to establish the run and get those play action over the top of the linebackers in between the safeties and attack them deep down the field. They didn't do that. And in fact, on deep throws in that game, in whatever week it was where they got beat down, Carson Wentz was 0 of 5 with 3 picks on throws, 20 yards or more downfield. You got to be better than that if you want to beat the Saints.
Yeah. The key here is just the Eagles' D-line, honestly, because we've seen it before. If you get Drew Brees off his spot, his accuracy goes down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the stats that you do, but that I know that Drew Brees, if you get him moving out of the pocket or anything like that, he won't be able to make the same. He won't be the same quarterback.
Yeah.
And also, the reason I think the Eagles will move the ball is just because they're more confident in the running game now. At that point in Week 11, they had lost Jay Ajayi, and they hadn't established who the replacement would be. They were throwing in Wendell Smallwood. They were throwing in Corey Clement, and it just wasn't working. But now they're just they got this kid Davis in there, and they're finally establishing the run. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing. Obviously, the Saints have a good run defense, but 3-yard runs, they serve a purpose. They keep the defense honest, and that's the biggest key. They need to commit to the run, and they need to stick with it if they're going to win this game. But I'm still going to pick the Saints, though. That's that. There we go.
Yeah, that was fine, but I didn't finish my prediction.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. I was going to talk about the Saints secondary versus Nick Foles, like I was talking about earlier. To get the exact stats right, New Orleans secondary was far better against short passes. Now, when we talk about short passes, we're talking about 10 yards and less. That's a short pass. The intermediate pass is 11 to 20, and then a deep pass is 20 plus, in case you were wondering. Against deep passes, there's 20 yards or more down the field. Saints defense ranked 32nd, dead last in the league when defending deep throws. That's where you got to attack this New Orleans secondary. It's not looking good for Foles. He's not done much better than Wentz. Since he's come in, he's 8 out of 22 for 317, a touchdown and a pick on deep passes this season. Got to be better. They got to figure out a way to complete deep passes in the field because you can do it against this New Orleans secondary. It just hasn't been done enough, and that's why the Saints have been rolling all season. Simple as that. I think the Eagles are going to keep it close first half. I wouldn't be surprised if they even had a lead, maybe even going into halftime. But I'm picking Drew Brees over Nick Foles, 2 guys that went to Westlake.
Yeah.
30 to 23.
You know who the career for Westlake passing yardage career leaders? Nick Foles and Drew Brees are the 2 quarterbacks there. Guess who is the all-time leader in passing yards at Westlake High School?
Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott. That's right. Hook 'em horns, baby. I had to plug the horns. Yes, sir. All right. Before we move on to the NBA wing, you have a few Antonio Brown trade rumors that you'd like to address.
Waiting all night.
There you go. Go for it, man.
Okay, so I'm gonna do the 3 teams I think would be good trade destinations first, and then I'll give my short little take on the whole situation. Cool. Team number 1, Arizona Cardinals. Okay. Now, first of all, the Cardinals would have no problem with the cap. They have $56.5 million in cap space, so they would have no problem absorbing the Antonio Brown $21 million, $23 million, whatever his cap hit. Larry Fitzgerald is mulling retirement. I don't think he's going to come back. So they're in desperate need of a downfield playmaker for Josh Rosen. Antonio Brown's the perfect guy. And listen to this. This is why this trade makes a ton of sense. First of all, Brown's on-field productivity would be welcome to Josh Rosen. It would help him a ton. I think Cliff Kingsbury, if he got his hands on a guy like Antonio Brown,
Kingsbury, yes, sir.
he's known as an offensive innovator.
We'll see if that works out.
Well, we're gonna see. But if he got his hands on a guy like Brown, who's still, in my opinion, the best receiver in the NFL, you could argue he's,
That's DeAndre Hopkins, but you can continue.
Yeah, if he were to get his hands on a guy like Antonio Brown to help Josh Rosen find ways to incorporate Brown into the offense, it would help Arizona significantly. Now, the other part of this is, what's Pittsburgh's weakness? The secondary. What if you gave up Patrick Peterson and maybe a draft pick or 2 for Brown? That would benefit both teams. It would give the Steelers a guy, aside from Joe Hayden, in that less than mediocre secondary, aside from Joe Hayden. It would help them as terms of their depth in the secondary, and it would help the Cardinals as far as a playmaker goes. You get Josh Rosen some experience. You have David Johnson in the backfield if he stays healthy, and Antonio Brown on the outside, along with some young guys like Christian Kirk. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not saying it's gonna work out, but
like trading the number 1 pick in the draft.
No,
Oh.
the second round or third round.
Yeah.
That would appeal to both teams.
Yeah.
Now, the second team, and the team that's been rumored most on Twitter, is the San Francisco 49ers.
Makes sense. I like that a lot.
Shout out Jake Ruby.
49ers season was over before it even started this season. I mean, Jerick McKinnon did whatever to his leg in training camp, and Jimmy Garoppolo tore his ACL in late September, and that tore their season apart.
That was it.
But next, the offense really struggled. They ranked 27th overall, 23rd in passing, dead last in rushing. But next season, you have both Garoppolo and McKinnon coming back healthy. There's still no number 1 receiver. They have George Kittle. He's a tight end, but they need a number 1 receiver on the outside. Brown would be that guy. If you pair him with George Kittle, Jerick McKinnon, Garoppolo, give him that number 1 option. It's an appealing fit. But the most interesting one I came up with, the third and final one, was the Indianapolis Colts. Why? They have more cap space than any other team in the NFL, $122.4 million.
A lot of money.
So they could, I'm not saying they'd do this, but Bell's on the market. Brown is on the trade market.
You're going to trade for both of them? You just trade the whole roster, just
Wow.
make it all one mega deal? That would be the biggest trade in the history.
They're probably the most attractive destination because of the quarterback situation, the team that they have now, the defense that they have now, the coach that they have now, Frank Reich, who's also Coach of the Year consideration, but he's not going to win it. A young, great general manager in Chris Ballard that's done a great job building through the draft last year, getting that Darius Leonard kid who's fantastic. Antonio Brown to make the Colts offense, it would take it to it's here and it would take it up here. Because then you got Mack, Hilton, Ebron. What a story he's been since coming over from Detroit. And then Brown. and Mac, of course. I don't know what they would trade for. That's the hard part, is I don't know what they would trade for Brown, because I don't know what draft pick they're going to have and if that's really going to appeal to Pittsburgh. But depending on the trade package they offer, you never know.
The funny thing is, I have a weird feeling that if you let Juju Smith be the number one, he's ready.
He's talented for sure.
He's ready to be the guy.
He is.
He's
ready.
Yeah. So I think y'all will be fine.
That's
if you ended up.
That's the great thing about the Steelers team is when Bell's situation went wrong, they had James Conner ready. He was great until he got hurt. And then now that Brown's doing this whole situation with Roethlisberger, they're in a beef. I don't really know what to say about that, but now that he's, ready to go, they have Smith-Schuster ready. They draft. I think they draft receivers better than any other team in football. But that's just my opinion. I might be biased, but I mean,
it's hard to argue. Y'all have drafted a lot of good receivers.
And then you got James Washington. I think he's gonna have a breakout season next season if Brown gets traded. Vance McDonald showed up. That was a good trade.
Yeah, y'all gonna get more involved.
And then Connor, of course, hoping he stays healthy. And that Jalen Samuels kid gonna get more touches with Bell gone.
Yeah. One last thing before we go to the NBA. Is Bell coming? Is Big Ben coming back?
Yes.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Do you want him back?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you do. I think you do want him back.
As long as that offensive line is there, you want him back.
Okay.
Because they
You'll make one more run for it.
They keep him upright and healthy. They've done a good job of that the past couple of years. And he led the league in passing yards. Now, the thing I don't like is the interception rate. But the amount of throws he throws, I mean, it comes with the game.
Yeah, he led the league in attempts,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's move into this.
In Dobbs or Rudolph, they're not close to ready. I don't think you can give up Roethlisberger until you have a guy that's somewhat ready to go.
Right.
But I'm finished.
All right. That was excellent, man. All right, we ready for hoops?
Yeah,
It's my time for hoops. I can't
Get
wait.
to it.
I see the comments over here. We got a lot planned for basketball. We only have about a half hour left of the pod. We're going to talk about AD trade spots, talk about ADP race. We'll be talking sneakers. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have to be official.
Yeah, we got. So we'll get through it.
Yeah.
So you want to start with the AD, Anthony Davis?
Sure.
Yeah.
I didn't do much on this, but y'all can.
All right, yeah, chip in whenever. But I first of all, I want to address Anthony Davis' situation. New Orleans barely has a team itself with one of the best players in the world, one of the most talented power forward / centers the league's ever seen. If they lose Anthony Davis for nothing next summer, the team's going to move to Seattle. Like, New Orleans is one of the dead last in attendance right now with Anthony Davis. If they lose a star like that, they don't get a star in return.
Yeah.
Like, that is deadly. That's
devastating.
devastating. You can't recover from that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw out. So I've been playing on the ESPN trade machine all week. I do that all the time. But I think there's only 3 teams that have enough assets to go after Anthony Davis. And I think you only trade him if he tells you in person that he's not going to be
I
signed.
agree.
That's the only way you trade him.
I
You make it
agree.
work as much as possible until he says, I'm out. Then you trade him. And I think we got to look back to evaluate his trade value. Let's look back at Kawhi. Before it was right before the beginning of the summer before Toronto made that offer with DeMar.
Yep.
Remember, it was like Josh Hart, Kyle Kuzma,
Yeah,
Brandon
all
Ingram, all of them. They want. I think it's a similar offer or even more for Anthony Davis. Is that fair? I think that's about where his trade value's at. This is one of the biggest stars to ever, or potentially ever be moved. So let's go. I'm gonna throw out a potential Celtics offer. I want to hear both those thoughts. So the Celtics would be getting Anthony Davis, Solomon Hill at $12 million. And Frank Jackson, just a second-year point guard, G League guy. 4, and then the Pelicans would be getting this in return: Al Horford, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. First of all, who says no? Why?
No picks.
No picks. If they want
Horford's
to,
80.
if you want to add in the Sacramento pick, because that's going to convert, or like because it's the protective. That's the complication of protections. You can throw in the pick if you'd like to. I think the highlight of this trade is just Tatum. That's really the fundamental piece.
So Tatum, Brown.
It's Tatum, Brown, Horford for Davis.
Yeah, it's clearly the main thing in that trade is Tatum, but I don't think Boston would trade Tatum. I think
you would rather have Tatum at 20. Well, how old is he? 22 or 20? He's 20. He's like, yeah. You rather have. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a fair point.
Honestly, I would trade Kyrie Irving before I'd trade Jason.
That's interesting because their contracts are almost that even, and they're both going to be expiring. He's is up this summer. AD is the following summer, but Kyrie already committed to re-sign. Remember? So, but do we trust it? Do we?
For me, I roll with Terry Rozier as a starter.
They have more depth at point guard.
Terry Rozier, one, he's a better defender, and then two, he fits better with their style of play. Jason Tatum needs a flow offense for him to be in rhythm. If he's just standing for spot up while Kyrie's going dribble, he's not going to get into a rhythm. I think it's fair to say that obviously you want Kyrie on your team for clutch moments, but it's like this team, they're built for now and plus 10 years,
I think it depends where the priority is. And it's also, I think they're not utilizing Kyrie to his full potential. Is that crazy? Because it's like, you're right about the team basketball when Kyrie saw how well they played. But I think, what if Kyrie was put in the James Harden role where he was asked to shoot as many times as he wanted to a night? Because he can score anytime he has the ball. So I think the ceiling is higher for a championship if you have Kyrie and Anthony Davis. But if you're talking long term, it makes sense if you want to Tatum. Kyrie has the best sneakers, depending on in the NBA. Shout out comments. But that's interesting. So who says no in the situation?
Who says no?
So remember, it's the Anthony Davis is what the Celtics get in return. The Pelicans would get Al Horford, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown.
Well, I mean, I think Pelicans would be stupid to say no to that trade.
Interesting.
That trade.
Interesting.
I don't think if I'm the Celtics, I'm not giving up Tatum. I'd probably more willingly give up Kyrie. But to your point, keep Terry Rozier and Marcus Smart as your ball handlers. Maybe if you don't want to give up Kyrie, throw in 1 or 2 draft picks. You already acquired all these assets. You get a player like Anthony Davis who can outweigh the benefits you get from Horford and Brown put together as far as defense and offense production-wise goes.
We're talking a complete shift, the way Garnett affected the Celtics defensively.
Generational talent.
When he got to the Celtics, they went from 28th defensively to first instantly. Just complete. Obviously, the Celtics are already a good defensive team. It's a completely different team than what they were in 2008. But it's the same type of thing.
For sure. Okay, so let's move on to the second team with enough assets to potentially make an offer. That'd be the Los Angeles Lakers. A lot of talk about LeBron pairing up with AD. That would be a terrifying combo to see in the playoffs. So crunching the numbers again about making the contracts work. So the Lakers would be giving up. The Lakers would be taking it. We'll do that first. The Lakers would get Anthony Davis. They get Cheikh Diallo. They'd get Tim Frazier and Frank Jackson. These are just all contracts and players to make sure each team has enough players on the roster while maintaining, while staying under the salary cap. In return, the Pelicans would get Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, Ivan Zubac, and to make contracts work, it would be Lance Stevenson at $4 million, and then have to take back a larger contract. It would be Rajon Rondo, or because that would be fun to have a reunion in New Orleans, or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. It's a switch of either of those guys, but the main focus would be Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Josh Hart, and Zubac if we want to talk potential. But Emmy Nixon, who says no?
I don't think
Pelicans say no to that trade right away.
Really? Okay, interesting.
Because you're giving up 5-star guy for a bunch of 3 stars and less.
Interesting. Who do you think's the best prospect in that trade? Is it Brandon Ingram or Kyle Kuzma?
It's Kuzma.
So you think
To
Kuzma's
me-
a better
to
player?
me,
than Brandon
it's
Ingram?
Kuzma, but Brandon Ingram has more potential.
He's still 21.
That's the weird thing. Kuzma is a second-year player, but he's like 2 years older than Ingram.
Yeah, for sure.
So, right now Kuzma's the better player, but Ingram has more potential, and he just needs to show more in terms of just late in games, just being able to lead, before he's that much of a viable asset in a trade like that.
To me, I don't know if you can do this, but if I'm the Lakers, I'm holding on to Kuzma.
I don't think there's any way that the Pelicans would accept an offer that doesn't include Kuzma.
I understand,
But
if there's any way possible,
you think that's very interesting because I think he's the best of the young guys that fits with LeBron.
Right.
If we're thinking like that's what we're all focusing on is who's going to fit with LeBron.
or maybe if you have to give it Kuzma, you keep Josh Hart.
Really, I the only young guy I want to hang on to is Lonzo Ball, but
because I don't know, Josh Hart, just like with the passing ability of both Davis and LeBron, if you can get if you can keep Josh Hart in that bench role, or maybe I don't know what their starting lineup is, but maybe even a starting role, and get him shooting those spot up threes. Get him. I mean, I've seen him. Complete player. He knows. He's just not a flashy player, but he gets his work done. He's an efficient shooter. He knows how to get to the basket. I find a way to keep one of those two players.
Interesting.
You can't keep both of them, but you weigh the pros and cons and you see what you can work out. Maybe throw in, I don't know what draft picks they have, but
not a lot. They don't have a lot of draft capital.
that might be a problem. But
Yeah.
For me, this is eerily similar to the whole Carmelo situation when he was leaving the Nuggets.
bad.
So here's how it went back then. The Knicks, they had a choice. They could have waited to the offseason, kept their assets, and signed Melo in free agency, but they elected to get him right away, and they traded all of their depth away to get Melo. And then that completely changed the direction of that team, and it just lowered their chances.
So you're saying you would rather wait for Anthony Davis than trade for him?
I'm putting all my money on free agency if I'm Magic Johnson.
I feel like it's already too late to trade Brandon Ingram because you already said they could have Kawhi Leonard. It's like you can't give it up now. You were all in on this plan to keep Brandon Ingram, so you're gonna have to play it out. But that's exactly what they said about Paul George. They're like, we don't need to trade for Paul George right now. Remember, there was a trade that the Indiana Pacers offered the Lakers. It was an even swap. Brandon Ingram for Paul George. And the Lakers said no. So now it's like they have so much stock. That was right before he got drafted. That was like on draft night. Isn't that crazy? Because they believed in Brandon Ingram. That was their guy. So they have blown so much on they have so many missed opportunities because they're believing in Brandon Ingram. But they realize he's a bad fit with LeBron. So now it's like, okay, you believed in him. He's only 21. He still could be a star. I don't think so, but people think he could be great. So you're stuck with him. So that's my take. Y'all want to hear my favorite offer?
sure.
This is with the Philadelphia 76ers. This is where you get the blue chipper that's going to keep you in New Orleans. Okay, it's Anthony Davis. This is the only person they give it. The contracts match perfectly here. Anthony Davis. In return, they get the 2021 Miami Heat pick, and they get the 2019 Sacramento if it converts to number one. If it doesn't convert to number one, this is 2019. It becomes spare parts. It's still of value. You get a young man by the name of Ben Simmons. You get a flyer in Markelle Fultz, who's paid $8 million. You get Mike Muscala, who's at $5 million, and then you get Zaire Smith. Is another flyer. He has a sesame seed allergy. I don't know what is going on with him, but he was a top 15 prospect going into the draft. You get the franchise guy in Ben Simmons, and then I'm gonna talk about my opinion on the trade after y'all do. Okay, let's go first. Who says no?
No one says no.
It's good for both sides. What y'all think?
It is good for both sides. It's just how are Anthony Davis and Embiid gonna mesh?
I feel like
That's
if
the
you have a chance to get
concern.
Anthony Davis, you do it. And they're not going
Right.
to win a championship with Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, and Joel Embiid. The
Right.
fit isn't going to work long
Exactly.
term.
Exactly.
So you're saying they keep Butler because you can't really trade him now because
You can't. I think you can't trade anything with Butler. I think they're stuck with Butler. I mean,
I do too.
Yeah.
But I just alluding to the point.
Yeah, I got you. To me, okay. So let me explain. This Ben Simmons is one of my favorite prospects. He's LSU alum that I've ever seen. This dude is 6'10". I don't like when people say he needs to develop his 3-point shot. He doesn't have to. He's dominant already. This dude's already averaging 20 points a game. He's Jason Kidd, but he's so freakishly tall and he's so smart and he's an elite defender. And it's really sad to watch Philly because they have Jimmy Butler, who they traded for. They thought they need Jimmy Butler. He's already beefing with Brett Brown in practice. Y'all saw that report. That's bad. It's been, 3 weeks? It's been crazy. They got Joel Embiid, who is a difference maker. He's the face. That is Philly city. Philadelphia is stuck with Joel Embiid, but it's just such a bias towards Joel Embiid. He is the chosen one. He's the face of the process.
Yeah.
They waited 3 years for this dude,
He's
and they
embracing
finally he's the city of Philly.
Yeah.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Imagine if Ben Simmons was in a Milwaukee with Giannis type of situation, just surround him with shooters, and he just flies around the court. That's exactly what would happen in Alvin Gentry's system in New Orleans. Isn't that crazy? You just give him the ball, because that's the thing. They want Ben Simmons to play with the ball in Philly, and that's ridiculous because he's so special with the ball. Give him the ball every play. He's going to find that open man. Like, I love watching Ben Simmons play and Ben Simmons dominate. This dude he and Luka Doncic are going to be the face of the league. Like, he has that kind of potential. His ceiling is MVP. And of all the guys we talked about in the Boston deal and the Lakers deal, Ben Simmons is the highest ceiling. I would rather have Ben Simmons than Jason Tatum. What do you think?
I agree.
I agree.
I just feel
100%.
like Ben Simmons, he's going to what was concerning, did y'all see the game where he's not comfortable taking game-winning shots yet? He's a little passive in the situation. I think it's going to come. He's still so young. I think that is the deal where it works out for both sides. From Philly's perspective, they can go out and win an NBA championship.
Right.
If they figure out, you get the two best big men about this is like Boogie and Anthony Davis, like on steroids, because it's Joel Embiid, who's I'm still not 100% sold that he's going to remain healthy the rest of his career. We kind of forget about that. He's played every game. Has he played every game this year? He's played most games this year, but he missed 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of time. So that's my take. I think they both teams win. Pelicans, I mean, if you look at the starting lineup, Ben Simmons at point guard, Jrue Holiday can stick off ball. Like, Elfrid Payton's not a long-term answer at point guard. You get Ben Simmons, you get Jrue Holiday. That's a great defensive backcourt. Eton Moore is your shooter. Nikola Mirotic at the power forward, who's awesome. And then Julius Randle. I love Julius Randle. He's so slept on. I really wish the Lakers had on him.
Yeah,
And it's interesting.
Me too.
And that's the part we didn't talk about the Lakers trade. The Kyle Kuzma and Julius Randle team chemistry situation would be awful because remember they traded Randle. Well, they didn't sign Randle because they had Kuzma.
Mhm.
They chose Kuzma over Randle.
Mhm.
But I think Randle's the better player. You got Randle at the small ball center and then just run up and down the court.
Mhm.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Any more thoughts?
For me, that trade is the depth is the issue for Philly.
For
the
Philly?
Philly
Yeah,
side.
for sure. Their
They're
starting
trading
point guard
away.
would be TJ McConnell in the situation.
Mm-hmm. That's
Concerning.
mm-hmm.
Definitely concerning. I think it's worth the risk. Because then think about it, with the buyout market, what if Jamie Lin becomes available? Or we have there's another veteran point. Like Milwaukee just got George Hill for nothing. Like there's always guys that like I don't know. You can they found Marco Bellinelli last year. Like you can find guys like that.
Yeah, it's true.
Shout out my man LaMarcus Aldridge.
Oh, that was
56
crazy.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but do we want to jump?
That trade, that would be insane.
Oh yeah, I think it works for both
I
sides.
don't know.
And again, you only trade Anthony Davis if you have to. That's the thing. Anthony Davis is a generational player. Like he is. If he was in any other situation, he's a consistent playoff. Like he's just so dominating, and he has every single skill in his bag. Like he's one of the best players in the league. So, we're talking about best players in the league. How about we jump over to the MVP race?
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, you go first, Andy.
I want to hear your James.
Yeah. All right. I brought a prop. This is all the way from H-Town. Shout out Grammy. She's in town today. She brought me the Chronicle, the Houston newspaper of today. I don't know if the video can see it. This is James Harden. And then it's right here, Revival of the Fittest. I want to take a second and talk about how James Harden is having one. You can hold on to that, man. There you go. There you go. See it?
is.
Yeah, make sure you take a picture. The bearded one.
Official.
There you go. That's the
There it
paper.
is.
That's
There it is.
it. That's it, man. And no one reads the paper anymore. The Chronicle's awesome. So he's having one of the best offensive seasons we've ever seen. It is so. First, before I get into the statistics, I want to talk about MVP moments. This dude has had so many MVP moments just this year. Like, he's already had more moments than he did all of last year. We can just talk about, was it 2 games ago where he killed Jamal Murray with just the little jab step there?
Oh, yeah.
That was, Jamal Murray just like fell over.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about
That was
Golden
weird.
State. That game was crazy.
Mhm.
And winning overtime.
That's a hardwood classic.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy. It was a West Coast game. I was up at 12:30 in the morning watching this game. Oh my! And the way he hit the 3 over Clay and Draymond, and then he just got right up and got in Draymond's face and cussing him out. And then he's telling everyone the huddle, 2-time MVP. Like, he took over that game.
Yeah.
James Harden. Then I know people are gonna bring up that Bucks loss that just happened, but the Rockets were down 20. And James Harden brought him all the way back. He is the most valuable player. The Rockets would be a lottery team without him. We just signed Austin Rivers on Christmas Eve, and he's right now he's our 3rd best player, which 4th best player if you put PJ Tucker ahead of him. It's crazy the lack of depth we have. So I'm gonna talk real quick. We're gonna crunch some numbers. I'm gonna compare last year's MVP season to this year's season.
Okay.
So his biggest strength is let's get into the line, but his 3-point shot is phenomenal, right? So last year he was making 3.7 makes a game, okay, on 36.7%. Pretty average 3-point percentage and a great amount of makes. This year he's making 4.8 makes per game at 38.6%, according to Basketball Reference. He's becoming a better 3-point shooter. And then he's already averaging more than 4 points a game from last year. He's at 33.9, almost at 34. Numbers like this we haven't seen a scoring output like this since Kobe Bryant, since Michael Jordan. That 12-game stretch where he's averaging 40 points a game, like that is it's unheard of. James Harden is the best basketball player in the world. So that was my take. I hope that didn't take too long, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Talking other MVP candidates. I mean,
Okay,
I'm ready.
well, first things first. The hate with James Harden is all like they're saying like he gets all these fake fouls and yada yada yada. But that hurts my soul when I hear people talk about that.
Remember Steph?
It's
He did a
just-
double step back. He's like 1-3. That's the most petty thing. James Harden did that once, and the ref missed the call, and people act like he does it every game. It's awful. But sorry, just go ahead. Okay,
It's
get
just-
fired up. I get so fired up about H-Town.
It's just like people are so like oblivious to what is going on right now.
Mhm.
You're talking about an all-time great in his prime at his best, and you're just gonna sit there and not appreciate what's going on. He's like 40 points.
This stretch is
Like-
unheard of.
like,
Without
it's
Chris
not-
Paul, without the consistency and the depth of last year, it's unheard of what James Harden's doing right now.
Yeah, it's just it's not fair what he's doing. It's the shots he's in. Oh, and one other thing, that Rockets Warriors game should have been on Christmas.
Oh yeah.
they fluked on Christmas. this year.
That was good. They had Portland and Utah on Christmas Day. They have to have the Knicks, but Giannis blowing out the Knicks isn't that entertaining.
The Knicks should not be on national TV. You talk about big city bias,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but anyway, just what he's doing is just not something you see ever. Like, it only happened 3 times in history.
Mm.
Like, I would not be surprised if Harden scored 60 plus in a game.
Oh, I think he's going to
This
do it
year.
by the end of the
I
year.
think he's gonna do it.
He did it.
Yeah.
How many times did he
Yeah.
do it twice last year? Or I think he did it once last year, but he's
Mhm.
done it before.
He's had like 4 50-point triple doubles.
Yeah,
Like
it's crazy. Yeah, it's astonishing to see.
What's the most so far this year?
Who is the highest total? Was it LaMarcus? Does LaMarcus have the highest total?
I don't think
56?
I don't think it's Lamarcus.
But he's up there.
I think it was Clay. He scored like 64 or something.
Wasn't that last year? Clay hasn't
No,
done
that
it
was
this
last
year.
He
Clay
had
hasn't
one
done-
game against the Bulls though, where he just like went off.
Oh, okay. We'll stat check that later.
Yeah.
But we only have about 5 minutes left. So we have any more thoughts on the MVP race? We want to do Kawhi?
We can do Kawhi, but I just want to say a couple
Yeah.
things. It's interesting. I agree. Harden's the MVP
Mhm.
right now.
Right now.
Right now.
The way he's playing, what are his stats? I'm just interested to know the exact. 33.7 points per game, 8.7 assists, 2 steals. His defense has also improved on 37 minutes per game, carrying the whole team. Almost about 5 threes made per game, 38% from 3, and that's amazing considering the amount that he shoots.
Mhm.
A 28.7 PER, third in the league, considering his usage rate. That's also off the charts. Just the fact that in the past 14 games, they're 12-2, and they don't even have Chris Paul, and he's carrying them. And
It's amazing.
He hasn't back. What are they now? Like 5 or 6?
They're fourth in the West.
Fourth in the West.
They're fourth
Yeah,
or fifth. You know it's so close,
They're
but it's
fourth.
fourth or fifth. Yeah.
They're fourth.
I mean, you can't argue with that. But I will make the case for Giannis, even
Yeah.
though I don't
Mhm.
think
A very worthy opponent in the MVP.
Right.
race.
Right.
in that Rockets game, he had like, what was it, 22 points and 21
He was 21 and
boards.
21. It was ridiculous number of rebounds.
Ridiculous. 27 points per game. That's only 12.6 rebounds. That's 7. 6 assists, 24. 1.3 steals, 42nd. His numbers are really, really good, but he doesn't have to carry near the load Giannis does. And if you look at it, what do the voters like? What do the people like? Or whoever decides the MVP, what do they like? They like the new. The case for Giannis, this is what I'm saying. The case for him is everyone, especially the NBA, loves the new fresh face, the new shiny toy. They like to go for that,
Post
and they don't like to
That's
give
why
out.
Derrick Rose got an MVP.
They don't like to give out repeat, just like that. I could see maybe Giannis getting it because of that kind of narrative that there is around the award, but we saw it happen last year. The Bucks started off hot, and then they kind of drifted
Mhm.
after
At
the
the end,
All-Star
yeah.
break. That's going to be the interesting thing to see this year is how they handle it after the All-Star break and how hot they can get going into the playoffs.
I think with LeBron injured and with the Raptors dropping the second in the East, I think Harden will win it because
I think he's the favorite right now.
yeah,
Here's an interesting question, though, for y'all. Who do you think's third? Because it's Harden and Giannis, 1 and 2. Who comes in third?
I think it's a 2-man race.
I think-
But if we count,
I think Kawhi goes in there if
Mhm.
if he's playing more consistently, he doesn't play back to backs. He doesn't play
Yeah,
second half back to backs.
yeah, he just has to play more. Honestly, he's playing at that high enough level, but it's just that Giannis and Kawhi just aren't that marketable.
No.
I'd say.
Not
And it's just tough to say that they would win an MVP.
It's hard because they're not campaigning.
Maybe not this year. I think he'll get one by the end of his career, but maybe not this year.
Yeah, but it's interesting. If I'm going to pick a sleeper, a dark horse for, I don't know if he's maybe third. He's definitely top 5. Paul George from the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah.
He is right now, since Kawhi's health. I mean, he's always the best two-way player in the game. But if Kawhi's out, it's Paul George. He's averaging 27 points a game. He's becoming the face of not the face. The face was going to be Russell.
Yeah.
He's becoming the best player
Mhm.
in Oklahoma City. When they play with them, they win games. That's a little sleeper pick. We don't want to go too far over time. We're going to keep it pretty short. But let's talk Kawhi. Recently, one of the biggest developments in the NBA was Kawhi going back to San Antonio. The Spurs, they were very aggressive at first. They were chanting traitor with him on the free throw line. Me and this beloved Spurs fan, Michael Ween,
Go
have
Spurs.
very opposite viewpoints on if the Spurs fans should boo Kawhi Leonard. So, Michael, I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about this the past couple of days. And, this offseason when the whole thing happened, it happened so quickly. I was mad at the whole situation and mad at Kawhi when I probably maybe shouldn't have been as mad as I was, but that's not the point. When I look at the whole situation, I think now I don't know. I'm not in the organization. I don't know what went down in the locker room, but we understand like what happened with the injury and how they may have mishandled the injury and all that stuff, and how Kawhi was kind of avoiding the team, in New York with his uncle.
He went and he worked out.
That's the part that made me mad, was he wasn't even with the team.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't care if you're mad at the doctors for mishandling the injury, but the fact that you're not even with the team in the playoffs, just sitting there on the bench, that's the part that made me kind of pissed off. But
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all remember, but I think the part that really moved the needle and said I'm done, when he said I'm done, is when Tony Parker and those veterans.
That was huge.
That's when I think he said, okay, I'm done. Y'all gonna treat me like this, especially the veterans like Parker, when he said my injury is 100 times worse than your injury or whatever through the media. Remember, Kawhi's he's a very private guy. He doesn't take that stuff. He needs someone to put his arm around, or like someone close to him he can go into. And he had that in Pop, but once Pop and all those guys started calling him out, that's when it all went downhill. I think that's who you should be booing, if anyone, Parker and the veterans. I think they're the ones who pushed him out the door.
Interesting. All right, so I'm gonna give my perspective real quick. I think a lot of Spurs fans, they remember the joy of winning a title and how rare that is, and there's no title without Kawhi Leonard. So I understand, shout out Mason Bohr, a beloved Spurs fan that refused to boo Kawhi Leonard. But I think there's two components to me that as a Spurs fan, if I was a Spurs, I'm a Rockets fan, of course. If I was a Spurs fan, I would boo the heck out of Kawhi Leonard for one game. We don't have to boo him whenever he comes back, or we go to Toronto or whatever, like the next coming years, we kind of let it slide. He brought the Spurs a title. But one game, you boo him until you cannot boo him anymore. Because first of all, he's under contract with the team. You can do this whole free agency thing is fascinating to me. These players they think they don't have to go to work. We saw it with Jimmy Butler. We saw it with Kawhi Leonard. They're paid. They're under contract to be a player for the Spurs. And him going out to New York is not okay during the season. Like, I understand there's difficulty with the team doctors. That's really frustrating. I was Team Kawhi as a Rockets fan or as an NBA fan. I was like, man, I want Kawhi to get better. It seems like the Spurs fans the Spurs doctors are doing him dirty. But you're still under contract. You need to be there when your team is playing. Like, that's so. Like, you led these group of men to a championship, and you're gonna leave them like that because of what some doctor tells you. And then what I think was the biggest thing was, remember that playoff series that they were in, it was without Kawhi, and he was injured, he was recovering and rehabbing in New York, and then the day after one of the Spurs playoff games, in between games, they spotted there's a picture of Kawhi Leonard at an LA Dodgers game in the middle of that playoffs. Did you remember that? I know you remember that. So you're telling me that Kawhi is too busy in his rehab in New York with his uncle and whoever his people are who convinced him to sign with New Balance. Says, God, he needs new people. Yeah, but you're too busy to go watch your team play. Go sit on the bench.
Go watch a baseball game.
Yeah, you go and you're gonna watch a regular season baseball. It's a Dodgers game. Like, that is a crime. Like, I just think the Spurs are such a classy organization. It's a pop-run team. Every time one of their guys comes back, it's a big old applause. Man, if James Harden did that, like, that dude's getting jumped. Like, that, like, H-Time would not handle that well. Like, it's just fascinating to see how Kawhi was the chosen one and he traded George Hill, and Pop talks about how hard of a decision that was trading George Hill for Kawhi Leonard, which in hindsight, that's one of the best moves Pop's ever made. He never makes trades, but that was awesome. And he was this quiet guy, and then Tim Duncan molded Kawhi Leonard into who he was. He was the face of the Spurs. And remember that Memphis playoff series? I think it was the year before that. And it was him and Mike Conley. That was one of my favorite basketball playoff moments ever. Just seeing those two dudes attack each other in the mid-range. Like, that was classic. And then just how he embodied the Spurs culture and then how quickly he flipped on them. Like, I think it deserves one game.
I think the whole turning point was when he switched to his uncle.
Yeah, he trusted his uncle more than
that's when it started going downhill.
Whoever was in his camp, in his ear, was giving him all the wrong info. If you're like the Spurs treat their stars well. Like there's no organization like that in the world really that's just gonna you're a Spur for
They
life.
treat all their players.
Yeah,
right. They're the best at player relations.
Really, yeah. And it's just like why? Like really, it's like this. It didn't have to escalate to that. I mean, yes, Tony Parker said what he did, but words are words. Like it's not that big a deal.
I feel like the Spurs are bigger than just an annoying old French dude yelling at your ear. Like I know Tony important to him. That was a big deal. But that being the breaking point of Kawhi's relationship with Pop, Kawhi's relationship with the Spurs.
Well, I don't think it's as much his relationship with Pop as people think it is. I think he still has a good relationship with Pop. You saw him meet after the game, shake hands, talk for a little bit.
They exchanged a nice conversation.
He said Kawhi said he still texts with Pop every once in a while. They still have an ongoing relationship. It maybe it's not as strong as it once was, but they still have a standing relationship there. It's interesting because Tony Parker's coming back. Now, of course, he's not going to get booed. He's Tony Parker.
Yeah,
it's 14 years with the Spurs. One
of the best players ever,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
He's not going to get booed, but he's coming back on Monday when the Spurs play the Hornets, but that's a whole nother story. What I'm saying is I don't think it's as much Pop Kawhi as it is Kawhi and the veterans and Kawhi and the doctors.
It was a divided locker room for sure.
There's kind of three sides.
Mm.
But I don't know.
Yeah, and I want to go back to his camp. That dude has the worst personal logo I've ever seen. Have you seen it? It's like the hand. It's like the claw. Like the people in his camp are just not doing him any favors. Like, let's get you a bigger market. We'll do this. And it's like a bigger market's not going to change your horrible logo.
That laugh.
Oh, the laugh was that Hopi. That's spot on. There you go. It's crazy.
You see the Bucks trolling.
Oh yeah, whenever the Raptors
did
turn over,
the Spurs should have done that.
They should have.
Oh man, that would have been crazy.
Yeah.
Before we end it, I have something to say. I've not said anything about this, but if you like college hoops, next week.
Gotta plug college hoops, yes sir.
Next week, Virginia plays at Duke. I will be there
at
Cameron.
That's lit.
That's awesome.
I mean, I don't foresee it happening, but it's gonna. I mean, College Game Day is gonna be there. It's gonna be probably a matchup between top 5, maybe even top 3 teams. Right now, Virginia's sitting at 4 in the country. They're undefeated. One of the 2 undefeateds left. Duke is 1. Now, of course, I'm repping the Virginia t-shirt. I want Virginia to win the game. But
you're going to see Zion.
Zion in person.
I don't really give a
bucket list thing.
I don't really give a crap because I'm going to get to see RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish. What's his
Zion.
Zion Williamson.
Yeah, Zion Williamson.
Trey
all
Jones,
in person.
Yeah, they got
Hunter, DeAndre Hunter, who a lot of people are overlooking.
They're all going to. All 3 of them are going to be top 5 picks.
But I will be there with my father, my grandfather, and my uncle. My grandfather went to Virginia for medical school. That's why he's a Virginia fan. My dad also has ties to Virginia, and that's why we're Virginia fans. fans.
There you go.
But I'll be there. It's 5:00 p.m. Central next Saturday. I'll be at Cameron. I'm so excited. I encourage you all, if you have nothing else to do, watch the game. It's gonna be one of the games of the year. I already know that.
Yeah, and we'll likely do another podcast before that game. We'll talk about that a little bit. But drop a like, subscribe. That's been it, y'all.
Thanks for listening.
Hope y'all enjoyed. Thanks for
Hey, thanks for
coming
having
in,
me, man. Thanks for having me. That was
It was
fun.
great.
Always have you back.
Anytime, man. Anytime. It was so much
Dude,
fun.
this is gonna be a series now.
Yeah, love talking hoops, love talking football. It's been a blast.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone tuning in. Yeah, it was fun, man.
Every couple weeks.
Hey, we got to.
You
Yeah,
gotta
for
get a
sure.
routine going.
We got to, man. I enjoy it, man. You do a great job. It's awesome. I'm happy to be invited back. So keep it going.
So, peace out, y'all.
See ya.